Welcome to our session this evening on the wonderful island of Tobago in the Southern Caribbean. My name's Phil. I'm manager for Dive Worldwide and Regal Dive. I'm sure many of you have spoken to me or know me already. We've got lots and lots of people that have signed up to this call today. So thank you very much for joining. And I hope you find the session very, very valuable. I'd also like to introduce my co-guests, please. So we have Derek from the Tobago Tourism Agency. Sorry, Stephen from the Tobago Tourism Agency. Sorry, Stephen, give us a wave.
Hello there.
There we go. And then we have Derek from Tobago. Derek is one of the pioneers, I think you would say, or grandfathers of diving in Tobago. We asked him yesterday how long he'd been diving out in Tobago, and he didn't actually know, but we worked it out to be about 34 years. So there's really nothing that Derek doesn't know about diving in Tobago. In fact, Derek, we've got somebody on the call. I believe they message us to say, "Oh my goodness, Derek taught me to dive, or taught me my advanced course, I think 20 years ago." So that's Nicole, who I think is on the call. I don't expect you necessarily remember her, but I'm sure she'll be interested to see how well time has treated you.
Excellent.
So Stephen will be giving us an overview in a moment of Tobago, and then we'll be turning over to Derek to talk you through the diving side of things. And we've got a couple of videos for you as well. There's a chat function on the. There we go. We've got another message on the chat. Somebody who also learned to dive with you, Derek. So we've got a chat function that some people found already that you're welcome to ask questions on. We've had a few questions in advance as well. We will try and answer all the questions that we can. Any that we can't answer, we will do our best to answer after the call, and maybe some of them will be answered as part of the presentation. I start just by telling you about my trip to Tobago. It was actually one of the it was the first trip I made when I joined Dive Worldwide many moons ago now, about 11 years ago now. And I was met at the airport by a very colourful and cheery, characterful chap with a parrot on his shoulder. And that set up really a wonderful week of colour and fun and great diving. We had leatherback turtles. We had some fantastic underwater sightings, the Sunday school beach party, and a rather surreal experience with some mermaids that I won't go into now. That's probably a story for another day. But the whole vibe of the place was good diving, colour and fun, really, really vibrant place, really characterful. And I hope through this presentation this evening, you get a real flavour for Tobago and its charms. That's what we hope to give you. So without further ado, I think that's everything I need to run through in the beginning. Stephen, if we hand over to you for you to tell us a little bit about Tobago on land.
Thank you very much, Phil. That's very nice for you. Nice introduction. And remember, I am Tobago Tourism Agency. So yes, thank you guys very much for joining us tonight. As Phil has explained, I'm going to just give you a little bit of an overview on the beautiful island of Tobago before the main event, which would be Derek, who will give you an insight into the beautiful diving and the wonderful underwater world that Tobago has to offer. So I will start by sharing my screen. And oops. And the first thing that's going to happen, I hope you can see my pointer here. The first thing that will happen that I'll show you is a short video. It's about 2-3 minutes, and it will just give you a little bit of a taste of what Tobago has to offer.
It's only when I go abroad and I see what is out there and I come back and I measure against what is here. There is no comparison to beauty.
Some writings of our history, it is said that Christopher Columbus called it Bella Fauna, meaning beautifully formed.
Natural beautiful, peaceful. Yes, I get emotional. That's why I'm here.
One of the fascinating things about nature, there's always something new, and especially in the tropics where there's such wide diversity, persons can experience and have the awe associated with some of the beaches we have, aquatic life we have, some of the fascinating birds we have within a day, within a short period of time.
You have the Caribbean Sea on one side, you have the Atlantic Ocean on the other side. On our doorstep, a fringe reef that wraps around the entire area. You have this huge amount of biodiversity and liveliness of the entire water that surrounds the island. We also do bioluminescent nighttime tours, which are like an escape into the deep, dark secrets of this, glowing phenomenon. It's like this almost cosmic effect. It's just something to be seen.
I know everybody in the village, and everybody know me. That is the nice thing about here.
Tobago is used to the extended family. There was always a grandmother, aunt, uncle. There was always love.
We eat and we drink, we laugh, and everything together.
Tobago, in one word to me, beautiful. Beautiful place to live.
It gives me great pleasure to be in Tobago and do what I do.
The sunsets here are probably bar none some of the nicest I've seen.
I would describe Tobago of one of the clean, serene, and the best place that anyone could come. Be easy, be happy, and have a good time. There is nothing to compare to.
This little dot called Tobago exists, and come visit.
And that was the intro video. As you saw from that video, the island is incredibly green and very lush. But the first question always asked is, where is Tobago? Now, Tobago is part of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, so that's where you might have heard the name Tobago before. We are one country with two islands, but we're positioned right at the very bottom of the crest of Caribbean islands. So you can't get much further south than us when it comes to the Caribbean islands. The major benefits of that is we're very, very much closer to South America, and obviously the equator, which means we have average temperatures of approximately 30 degrees year round. And we also actually sit underneath the hurricane belt. So on an annual basis, we don't get troubled by the hurricanes. I think the last time we had any interaction was 1963, which, as you can imagine, is quite a while ago. So yes, our positioning is fantastic. It means that we have that fantastic array of birds, as you just saw in the video, but it also means we have amazing coral systems, which Derek will elaborate on a little later on. Getting to the island, very, very easy. Obviously, Dive Worldwide will organize everything for you, but the two major carriers, Virgin and British Airways, both fly direct to Tobago. Virgin fly out of London Heathrow twice a week in the winter and once a week over the summer, and British Airways flies twice a week year round out of Gatwick. Both of these services does stop in Antigua, but you do not disembark the aircraft, so that's why it's classed as a direct service. You stay in the aircraft and fly through. Now, one of the other questions I was asked to point out is sort of the up-to-date information regarding protocols on island. Now, the island isn't open for tourism at the present moment in time, but the most up-to-date information can be found on the TobagoBeyond.com website, and at the very first page, there's a Tobago advisory update at the very top of the page. So that's where the most up-to-date information about protocols and borders opening will be for any future reference. Now, the island itself, the island is 25 miles by 7 at its widest point. It's not particularly large. Getting from the airport, which is down in the southwest tip, over to Speyside, which would be the furthest you'll travel for accommodation, would take about an hour and a half, which isn't a huge amount of time. So, you know, it's very, very easy to circumnavigate the island. With regards to the diving side of things, there are three main areas for diving around Tobago. We have the southwest region down here, we have the north side over here, and we have the east side over here. Now, if we start on the southwest, obviously there's dive sites which sort of engulf this peninsula around here, but my focus is on the other things you can do and see. Derek will focus on very much the diving. So the other things would be, we have the Pigeon Point Heritage Park down here, which is fantastic for water sports. If you want the more vigorous ones, the kite surfing and the surfing and the windsurfing, that's down here. But we also have the kayaking, stand-up paddle boarding, which is very, very popular. It also happens down there. We can also take part in that down here. This is where probably 80% of your accommodation, your nightlife, your bars, your restaurants is situated down in the southern western area down here. So another activity would be, if you saw on that video, there was the bioluminescence experience. That actually happens in this little area here called the Bonaccord Lagoon. So all those beautiful experiences, that happens year round. It's when the moon is at its darkest, but you can actually enjoy that experience down here. Along this area here, there's some fantastic beaches where we have the turtle nesting. Again, between March and September, the huge leatherbacks come in and nest here. And in fact, I've been told and advised that some of the other beaches up here, which I'll come to shortly, that they do also have turtle nesting as well. But these are the main ones because obviously there's so many properties down here. So that's where most people will get to experience that down here. And there's a couple of golf courses down here as well. So do you know what, if you want other bits and pieces to do down in this area here, there's lots of things to do and see, as well as the diving surrounding this peninsula here. So if you travel up this, which we call the Caribbean coast, what you're going to come to, what you'll encounter are pristine villages. There's Castara, there's Parle-Touvier, which in effect are unspoilt, authentic Caribbean villages. There's no super developments in these villages. The fishermen still pull in their nets, it's called pulling the seine, every single day. You can stay in these villages. There's like apartments and villas in Parle-Touvier and Castara, as well as apartments. There's a couple of hotels up there. But between these gorgeous, beautiful, authentic villages, there's your sort of Robinson Crusoe experiences. There's Englishman's Bay, there's Bloody Bay, which are deserted beaches. Englishman's Bay has one bar, stroke restaurant, stroke gift shop along a whole 2-mile stretch of beach. If you Google Englishman's Bay, Tobago, have a look at that beach. And I'm telling you, there is only one facility on the beach. No hotels, no other interactions. There is one other interaction in the car park of Englishman's Bay. I've been there a couple of times, and there's this guy, a local guy, who turns up in his Volkswagen Beetle, and he opens the bonnet and he has homemade ice cream that he sells to people in the car park there. That's how down to earth and authentic that whole region, that whole Caribbean coast is. Very, very beautiful. And the more you move away from the southwest, the more peaceful, more tranquil, more authentic, or down to earth green Caribbean this is. So the next area is Charlottesville. So this is your main town stroke village, which provides you the diving facilities or operations for these northern dive sites. So you have areas like the Sisters, the Brothers, St. Giles Island, and also in Charlottesville, you have the Eric Research Facility, which Derek will elaborate on when he presents. So yes, fantastic diving around these areas here, and that's out of Charlottesville here. And that brings me round to this area here, the east side diving. And the main village which operates these sort of dive sites is Speyside. That's a little village that operates these dive sites. And you have obviously an array of amazing dive sites around here, around this area here. But other things away from the diving here, you have Little Tobago, you have Goat Island. Little Tobago is in fact a bird sanctuary. Up in this area here is a bird sanctuary, which leads me on to this area here, the Emerald Spine of Tobago, the Tobago Main Ridge Forest Reserve, the oldest protected rainforest in the Western Hemisphere. Fantastic for trailing, nature trails, walking, and of course, as you saw from the video, bird watching. Very, very popular. So if you're staying along this coast, this northern coast here, or you're staying over in Speyside, which has again some more hotels and apartment opportunities, it's about 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes to get to the walking spots of the rainforest. So very, very easily accessible for if you're traveling with somebody who doesn't want to dive or doesn't dive all the time. Excellent opportunities. Again, in this area down here, we have one of the 6 waterfalls that you can walk to. This is perhaps our most famous one. It's called the Argyle Falls. It's a 3-tiered waterfall with a pool underneath each tier where you can take a refreshing dip. Absolutely beautiful. It's about a 10-minute walk into rainforest, and then you come upon the beautiful waterfalls. But it's, again, something slightly different to explore whilst in this northern or along this area here. And right next door to the Argyle Falls is the Tobago Cocoa Estate. Again, very, very culturally rich is our island, and the cocoa plantations and the production of cocoa beans is an integral part of our history and culture. And obviously you can see the process from growing the bean to its complete final production when it's then shipped off to make fantastic Tobago cocoa. So yes, lots of different things, all very, very natural, all very, very authentic, available away from the diving opportunities. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. That's my introduction. The 3 main areas for diving, the southwest, the northern, and the eastern parts of the island. The island is green, it's lush, it's peaceful, tranquil, and authentic Caribbean. And as you saw from that video, with all those beach shots, every single beach shot you saw the rainforest actually came down and fringed the beaches. That's how green the island is. So yes, that hopefully will give you a nice picture of what Tobago is and give you the idea of where the various dive areas are. And so now what I will do, I will welcome Derek to join the presentation, and I will mute myself. And yes, I'll be available for questions at the end after the presentation. But now over to Derek. Thank you.
Right. Well, thanks a lot, Stephen, for that introduction. So I'm taking it over from here and speaking about the diving here on the island. I'd like to start off by saying that Tobago is one of the best dive destinations in the Caribbean, and that's a pretty bold statement to make. And I don't mean to necessarily say that we have the best wreck dive in the Caribbean or we have the best coral reef on the Caribbean. When I say we're the best dive, one of the best dive destinations, I mean that we are probably the better all-round destination for you. We've got quite a variety of dive sites and marine life, and we basically have something for everyone. And in that sense, I'm quite confident in saying that we are pretty good. Let's have a little look at the dive sites today. Our dive sites do span wreck, coral reef, rock reef, mini walls. We do have some patch coral reef as well, encompassing the entire range of the environment that you'd expect to find here in the Caribbean. Top that off, I can say without a doubt that we have some of the best marine density and diversity in the Caribbean. Everything ranging from the larger marine life, everyone's favorite sharks, rays, manta rays, turtles, eels, that sort of thing, spanning all the way down into the coral, typically marine life that we'd expect to see, angel fishes, butterfly fish, and that sort of thing, to the more unusual oddities such as the short-nosed batfishes, the very rare pygmy angel fishes, which include both the flame-backed angel and also cherubfish. We've got so much diversity here that we've been chosen several times for international filmmaking. David Attenborough's Blue Planet series, which was a few years ago, the flying fish segment was shot here. And Paul Human, who's got the most comprehensive photo ID book for Caribbean marine life, his photos of the black rottweiler were actually shot here in Tobago, the initial ones. Let's talk a little bit in general terms about what to expect when you're diving here. If we're looking for visibility, folks are always going like, when's the best time to dive? When's the clearest waters? I would generally say that we're looking from November till April or December till April as the best time of the year for us. And that's primarily because we have 2 climate seasons here on the island, the dry season and the wet season. And so December, November till April, we are in the dry season. Therefore, we have the clearest waters around the island. That's not to say that visibility is bad the rest of the year. Generally speaking, we're between 12 to 40 meters visibility. It does range inside there. And you take a ballpark average, we're somewhere between 18 to 30 meters in vis year round. Other times of the year to look out for would be May to November, where we see some of the larger marine life. This time of year, we're getting the manta rays coming in. Up to a couple of weeks ago, we were snorkeling with one up in Mount Irvin, and they are present in Speyside, according to my colleagues up there. And we'll find the larger rays, the larger manta rays taking up residence somewhere around June, July into the August months. So we'll have that span from April right through to the summer for seeing large rays. But we do have other rays, of course, that we see year round, which would include spotted eagle rays and also Southern Atlantic rays. Turtles are a big thing. Phil mentioned earlier about leatherback turtles, as did Stephen. This is our prime nesting season for leatherbacks. And so in the evenings after diving, you can trek out onto the beaches and quite often observe leatherbacks nesting. Later on in a couple of months' time, we're going to have the nestings coming out. And then if you're here at that time of the year, in terms of down in June time, we'll be able to see the hatchlings making their way out into the sea. And also from a nesting point of view, we also have hawksbill turtles, which are the latter part of the nesting season. So we're looking at June, July is when they're coming up to nest. And we do see these turtles on dives. Generally speaking, we're seeing hawksbill turtles and green turtles on dives year round. And we do have that chance of seeing leatherbacks at this time of the year as they make their way back and forth from shore, back out to open ocean during the course of the day. We're going to split now and we're going to look into the three major areas that Stephen mentioned. But before I jump into that, just to point out to you that the northern side of the island is the Caribbean coastline, and the southern side of the island would be the Atlantic coastline, which is generally referred to as the windward. So we have the Caribbean, which is the leeward, and the Atlantic, which is the windward. And as a generalization, we'll have very little current on the Caribbean side, that is the northern side, and we can have currents, wind-driven currents on the Atlantic. So this particular slide here, we're focusing on Speyside, which Stephen describes as the eastern side of the island. Speyside is about an hour and a half away from Crown Point, as he had mentioned. So generally speaking, if you're diving in this area, you're staying in that area as well. And that's the case, your dive sites are a mere 10 to 15 minute run time to get out onto site. Speyside is best known for its coral growth. It's just, there's nothing that beats seeing lush coral and sponge growth spanning as far as your eye can see. That's pretty neat. That's pretty hard to beat. So if it is that sponge and coral does it for you, that's really a key spot on the island that you have to visit. So we have beautiful corals up there, beautiful sponges. It's very colorful. In the Caribbean, our colors typically come from sponge growth rather than coming from coral growth. And so it is an extremely colorful part of the island. We do see a lot of manta rays up there during the summer months. We also will get a lot of turtles, a lot of sharks. And probably one of the things that it's best known for, is really notable for, or a signature dive would be at Culliston Drain, which we lay claim to it being the home for the largest brain coral in the Western Hemisphere. And that's a pretty big statement to make, but it is a big brain coral. Things maybe 15 or 16 foot in diameter, 12 foot in height. It just makes it's until you actually see it in person, you just can't appreciate how large this thing is. But it's not also known for corals and sponges. Speyside is also home for two artificial wrecks, the Round Table and the Trinity. Those were both deliberately sunk in sandy patches in that area to create a bit of wreck diving versatility for training purposes, and also to give you something a little bit different to look at. They're both oil service supply boats that had been stripped and cleaned so that it is harmless to the environment and to divers. They lay at a depth of about 24 meters, 80 feet, and they're about 100 foot in length. They've taken on quite a lot of sponge growth. They're very, very colorful. They are safe swim through for those of you who have the experience to do that. And we do get large Goliath groupers making their appearance from time to time on those sites. We're going to shift across now to the northern site, which is going to be Charlottesville. And Charlottesville is just a hop away. There are no large hotels in Charlottesville. You can be staying in Speyside, and it's a 10-minute drive by car over into Seaville. Although there are a number of guest houses and smaller properties that you can stay there as well. And Charlottesville is the largest naturally protected bay that we have on the island. It sits in Man O' War Bay. And this is the home for ERIC, which is one of our dive centers on the island. They are our only research center at this point in time. And they're doing a lot of work with coral transplantation. And they're also gathering information on sharks and also on rays. And they've got programs that you can join in and work alongside of them as a sort of a conservation work environment, or holiday, I should say. Charlottesville area is not so much coral reef as rock reef, but a lot of interesting sponge and coral growth. So it is still very colorful, but it's a different formation from typical coral reefs. And the rock formations extend outside of the bay into St. Giles and to London Bridge, Marble Island, which is on the extreme northeastern tip of the island. It's all mini walls, rock boulders, very impressive in that scene. So in terms of as a visual, makes a great contrast to the corals in Speyside. So this is an area as well that we're going to find a lot of smaller marine life, a lot of angel fishes and so forth. And typically we do have chance of seeing on the sisters side of it. I didn't mention that. If we were to look at a map of the island, southwest of Charlottesville is an area called the Sisters. This is also an area that is accessed from the southwestern tip. So those of us down at the Crown Point area, we can also access that by boat. And there are a couple of islands that are 2 miles offshore, mini walls on the outside of it, on the inside, lush coral reef, dense marine life. I've seen everything there from pygmy angel fishes, which are only this big, to 12-foot hammerhead sharks, to sailfish, to manta rays, to hawksbill turtles. There's really got a possibility of seeing larger marine life there. So let's pop on down now and come on down south home where I'm probably most comfortable. That's where I'm located. We're down at the Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa right now. That's where our dive shop's based, and my backdrop is view from the beach. I'm down here. So those of you who've been here before would have recognized that. The southwestern tip in Crown Point area allows us to access dive sites both on the Caribbean coastline and also on the Atlantic coastline. And we would choose where we want to dive depending on given sea conditions and given the interests of the divers that we have at the moment. If we're on the Caribbean side, we're ranging up to Mount Irvin area, which is also where the wreck of the Maverick is located. The Maverick was our first artificial reef that we put into place back in 1996. She's an old roll-on, roll-off ferry. She was our first roll-on, roll-off ferry in actual fact, built in Scotland back in the early 1960s. And we sank her there in 1996 to make an artificial reef and playground for us divers. She's 186 foot in length, and she ranges in depth from 21 meters at the bridge down to 30 meters on the sand. And on this particular site, she's got lots of sponge growth, very colorful. We have possibility of seeing cobias, we see turtles, we see, last time I was there, we had a Goliath grouper, about 130 pounds in weight, so fairly sizable. We're not doing so much wreck penetration on this site at the moment. She started to collapse a little bit, but for the more experienced divers, we are still able to get down into the engine room spaces and have a peek inside there, albeit briefly. Close to that, within a couple of hundred yards of that is Mount Irvin Wall. And Mount Irvin Wall is not really a wall dive. It's a bit of a misnomer. It's, let's just call it a mini wall. And rock reef, lots of sponge and encrusting sponge and coral growth, turtles, eagle rays, octopi, seahorses, short-nosed batfishes. Really interesting dive. It's a shallow one, it's only 15 meters in depth, 12 to 15 meters in depth. So it allows us long bottom times on that site. Very sheltered area. These sites are both on the Caribbean side. Typically, there's no current. Usually the sea is absolutely flat calm. But on the southwestern side of the island, not only do we have this area, but we also have a lot of dives on the Atlantic side that we can access. And so if we go on to the next slide there, Stephen, these sites, because they're on the Atlantic side, are more subject to wind and can be subject to currents. And so generally speaking, the dives on the south side are drift dives, and drift dives in the true sense, in that you're going in, you're drifting along the reef, you're watching life scroll past while you're neutrally buoyant, and you're popping up at the other end. That boat comes pick you up. We do have other dive sites on that southern end as well, which are some of my personal favorites. I know divers always want to know where do you want to go? Where is your favorite spot? And those dive sites would include Diver's Thirst and Diver's Dream. And those would be the one's more of a plateau, very shallow plateau. And the other one is rock ledges with sand valleys, very, very pleasing to the eye. The high points of those two dives is going to be fish density and big animals. We get large sharks on those sites. We always see spotted eagle rays, turtles, barracudas, large rays, good chance of seeing Goliath groupers as well. And if you see something common like a French grunt, you're seeing thousands of them. So, things that are common, we're seeing in large quantity. And that's always very pleasing. Those particular sites are subject to tidal currents as well. And so for Diver's Thirst and Diver's Dream, we do need to kind of keep an eye on that. We're typically diving that around the low slack tide. Being British divers, of course, you guys know a lot about diving around currents and timing your dives in order to get minimal currents, for safety. There is also a wreck down on that side that a lot of folks don't speak about. And she's the wreck of a British merchant ship. She's called the SS Kyoto. She was torpedoed in 1942 by a German U-boat under Hans-Jürgen Offermann, U-514. And September 15th, she was hit by a couple of torpedoes and she sank. She's resting now in 12 meters of water. She's broken open. A lot of identifiable features. That's also one of the sites that are subject to currents, so we can't always visit her. But certainly if you're down here diving with me, raise it with me and we see if we can get you out there if you're interested in that. That's a pretty neat dive. One of the things I would like to stress is that we have something for everyone here on island. And if you're going to be here if you're fortunate enough to be here for a couple of weeks on holiday, I would certainly encourage you to explore the possibility of spending 1 week on the southwestern tip and maybe 1 week up on the northeastern tip of the island and split your holiday. And then that way, that gives you a little bit more, you're going to be able to experience the best of what Tobago has to offer diving wise. If you're only here for a week, you're down on the southwestern tip, we certainly run trips up to the north. You can do a day trip up there and vice versa. You can do the same from the other end. Well, let's have a little look at just a bit about what we spoke about. So in the map that Stephen showed you, there are quite a few dive sites on it, but we do in fact have over 50 sites on the island spread throughout. It's impossible for us to talk about all of them or to show you where all of them are. So, but lots of stuff to keep you occupied. If conditions are not that great on one side of the island, we can nip around onto the other side and keep you happy. If you are lesser experienced, we can expose you to really easier diving, get you back into the swing of things, build a little bit of confidence, a little bit of experience, start to expose you to a little bit more advanced diving, and improve your diving experience throughout while you're here on your stay. All of the dive centers on the island are PADI dive centers, and so we all do PADI tuition. But there are a couple that also offer BSAC and also NAUI tuition, and also SSI. I don't think that's not on the slide. There's also SSI on the island. So if it is that you wanted to do your advanced program, or if you had friends or family that were coming down to do open water referrals, and they're one of these agencies, you can certainly speak to Phil at Dive Worldwide, and he can hook you up with which dive centers do what and help you with your holiday planning in that regard. Let's not forget the conservation point of things. We have Eric up on the northeastern tip. All of the dive centers on the island are conservation minded. We're not necessarily doing coral transplantation as Eric, but as a generalization, I can tell you that we're a hands-off, don't touch, don't take anything on the reefs, and we certainly incorporate conservation talks in all of our dive briefings as part of our general procedures. The marine life, I can't stress enough, it's variety or density and diversity is the way I would put it, the double D. Can't stress that enough. You're gonna see some pretty interesting stuff here. Let's move on to the next slide there, Stephen. So we have a wide variety of dive sites, as I mentioned. Just to recap that, walls, wrecks, coral reefs, rock reefs that encrusting sponge and coral growth, stuff here for new divers, inexperienced divers, stuff for experienced divers. On that particular topic, we do have nitrox available on the island. We're typically offering either nitrox 32 or 36. It is available at both ends of the island. However, it is something that is required. It's available on request. Certainly for myself, we're still doing partial pressure blending, and therefore we do need to have a day's notice so that we can blend the required mix for you to have it available for you the next morning. We don't have technical diving on the island. We don't offer any technical training. And most of the dive sites here on the island range between 12 to 30 meters in range. That covers most everything. There are a couple of sites that are down in the 30 to 40 meter range that are available, of course, for those who have the training and the experience. And I do have a couple of sites on this end here that would be of interest to tech divers, especially if you're a tech rec guy. That's something that we don't have as our regular offering, but certainly if you're down here on holidays, you can always raise that with me. Probably the most exciting thing that's happened for us in our shop in the last couple of years since lockdown is that we have identified the wreck of the Gran Rio R, which was bringing sand to the island back in 2000 and disappeared without a trace. 9 crew members lost without a trace. And we did find that ship 2 years ago, but we thought it was a ship. And just recently, within the last couple of months, which would have been last November, we positively identified her. So that's something that's pretty neat. She is at 45 to 50 meters in depth, definitely tech range. Something that the tech guys can talk to me about whenever they're down here. Last thing I'd like to say is that we are not for the masses. So we're not going to find a dive boat with 24 divers on board. That's not going to happen. So if you're expecting that, I'm sorry to disappoint you. We are using small boat. Typically, the dive boats here are running between 6 to 14 people on board. And that allows us to do guided dives. It allows us to learn everyone's names and refer to you by name rather than by number. And I think that's pleasant for everyone. Phil made mention that I've been on the island for 34 years. And when we'd been chatting earlier on, he says, well, 34 years is a long time. And I made mention that it passes really, really fast when you do something that you enjoy. And one of the things I really, really enjoy is making friends, having a chat, learning about your diving experiences and showcasing our beautiful island. And so with that, I'm going to turn you over to Stephen until question and answer time, and then we'll get back into a few things. Cheers, Stephen.
Thank you very much. No, that was amazing. That was fantastic. Even though I have dived in Tobago, I'm still learning more about the diving and the variety there. That was absolutely fantastic. So the last thing we're going to show you guys before we move on to the Q&A session is just a short, it is a 1.5-minute video, just highlighting some of the diving. There's a little bit of music behind it, and if Derek does want to comment on any of the things that come up in the short video, he can do so. But yes, just a short video just to give you a little bit of taste of the diving. We showed you above water beforehand, and now a little bit of underwater. Okay. And that is it. Thank you guys very, very much. I'm going to stop sharing now so that we can all see each other. Voila.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Stephen, and thank you, Derek, as well. That was fascinating, and I hope for everybody that gave a really nice insight into Tobago, its diving and all its charms. We had a few questions in advance, and we've had a few more on the chat as well. Some of them I think have been covered in the presentation that you guys have given, but let's try and run through as many as we can. As I say, if we miss any, please accept our apologies. We'll follow up later. Yeah, let's just go through them. So Kira asks, what's the must-do dive site in Tobago? Well, I guess that's a personal matter. Derek, I guess you've covered that there with Diver's Dream and the dive sites in the southwest there. That's your favourites. I guess some of the other iconic sites are the sites on the north coast where you have a chance to see some big fish. Would that be correct?
For sure. In Speyside, it'll be Kellaston Drain with the big brain coral. Yeah. That's a must do if you're in the Speyside area. If you're in Charlotte, you got to do London Bridge.
Yeah, super. And then we've had a few people asking about the best time of year to go. I think we covered that a little bit, but should we just quickly, Derek, from a diving perspective, quick summary of the seasons?
Sure. It depends on what we're looking for. If from November till May, it's going to be the clearest water, right? So you can pick and choose inside there, whether you have kids, you don't have kids, you like to travel inside of holiday season or not, or whether, of course, you want to run away from the winter. That's the time of year to come do that. June, July, August, which is, of course, very popular for families, is the rainy season. So do expect that you are going to have some showers. We're usually not torrential. It usually blows over quite quickly. Visibility is still pretty decent, but we generally on the Atlantic side, we do have some water movement starting off. So we're always going to have some drift during that period of time. And then later on, if we're looking down at September, October, so late August, September, October, that's officially that's hurricane season. We are out of the hurricane belt, as Stephen mentioned. That's actually the calmest time of year. It sucks all the energy up. It's the flattest seas. It's the least current. But it's also the time where we start to get the effects from the rainy season. So the visibility starts to drop on that time.
Yeah.
Depends on your priority.
Okay. Thank you very much, Derek. And we've also got a question about air and water temperatures. So generally tropical and warm, but maybe you can give a couple more numbers.
I'm in the shade. I'm in 29 degrees at the moment. If I step outside this hut, I'm going to be in 30, 31. It's a warm day today. Water temperature, we're averaging 28 degrees. The coldest time of year for us would be February and March. Water temperatures can drop if you're in an upwelling Can drop to 25, which for us is frigid. 24, that would be frigid for us, but that would be unusual.
Yeah.
So generally 28,
yeah.
29 in the summer, and then in February, March, we're looking at 26, 27.
Yeah.
25 if we have one.
A great deal warmer than the UK, I think, in conclusion. We've got a couple more. Pippa asked about liverboards, so I can answer that. Pippa, there are no liverboards currently in Tobago, and you don't really need them because you can access all the best dive sites from resort. We've got a question from Roz about, she's a non-diver but experienced snorkeler. Would you say there's opportunities on the island that Tobago is suitable for Roz?
Yes, there is opportunity for snorkeling. When we run dive, when the dive operations are generally live boating techniques that we're using. And so we're typically not running snorkeling at the same time as scuba because the boat can't provide sufficient coverage or supervision for both parties. But there are some dive sites that are anchored sites that are good for snorkeling as well. So if she's along with a diving partner, there's an opportunity for her to do some snorkeling from the dive boat itself. Other than that, if she's traveling outside of the diving segment from it, there is a lot of snorkeling that's available from shore, and there are a number of boats that run trips that she can join in on.
Yeah.
Super, thanks very much. And then we had a question from Jonathan about sargassum, which is a phenomenon that sort of reaches the whole of the Caribbean at times. So I think we should touch on that possibly so that people are just aware of that, and that it sort of that it can happen and how it happens.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, sargassum is a reality now. That's been around for a few years. We are affected by sargassum like the rest of the Caribbean, and also Mexico as well. But I think because if you recall where we positioned on the map, we're right down at the southern end along South America. And in actual fact, we don't get as much effects from sargassum as our northern neighbors do. That's not to say that we don't get it, we do. Typically, when we have sargassum, it typically would affect more the windward side of the island. The Caribbean side is completely clear. Where we're here at the Cocoa Reef Resort, we don't get sargassum.
Super, thank you. And Stephen, a question possibly for you from Jeff, I believe, which is about safety in the resorts in Tobago, and I guess a question related to COVID measures and where the island's at this point in time.
Well, you know, Tobago has certain protocols on land on island. And you know, at the present in time, we've over 150 different organizations, and be it properties, be it dive operations, be it ground handlers, who have already signed up and had approved the Safe Travels, the WTTC's Safe Travels stamp of approval. If I could just explain something about WTTC. WTTC, the organization, recognized Tobago as a global example in safety and protocols. And to the extent that in last October, the WTTC handpicked Tobago as one of the 7 destinations in the world leading the way in ensuring compliance to safe travels protocols. So in a nutshell, the protocols on island, the facilities that the Tobago Tourism Agency has in following up on those safety protocols is absolute. We're kind of leading the way in the Caribbean region and around the world with regards to protocols on island, with regards to health and safety. As I said at the very beginning, when the borders are actually open, I couldn't tell you. But with regards to safety, when visiting the resorts or using the facilities on island, it's not a problem. And Tobago is one of the leaders with regards to what they're doing on island. If you're talking about the other type of safety as well, again, it's a fantastic destination. We promote the destination very much for solo travelers, for families, as well as obviously groups. And you know, safety. You know, Derek would confirm with me that safety isn't really a major issue at all when just traveling around and enjoying Tobago as a destination.
Yeah, I certainly felt safe when I was there as well. We've got loads and loads of other questions that have come through on the Q&A on the chat. So let's see how many we can get to that we haven't answered already. Pat asks, is it easy to drive around the island and hire a car? I think we can say simply, yes, it's very easy.
Yes,
no
very easy.
At all there.
No.
A couple of people have asked about if there's any issues with coral bleaching. From my perspective, I went there, a number of years ago, and because of the way the currents come through the island, the corals were fantastically healthy. But I guess that was a few years ago. So is that still the case, Derek, or are there some
yeah, we
things
do.
to be aware of?
We do get some coral bleaching from time to time, like everyone else. It's coral bleaching doesn't necessarily mean that the corals are going to die. It does mean that they're under stress. So once the stresses are removed in a timely enough fashion, they do rebound. Generally speaking, I would say we have a lower mortality rate than other Caribbean islands. So we don't have much problems with coral bleaching in terms of permanent effect.
Yeah, it's got a very fortunate position from that point of view. Nicole asks, is there any muck diving?
I guess the answer to that is yes, there is muck diving, but no, we don't do too much of it or any of it. Generally speaking, everyone wants to be on the reefs. But I'm happy enough to do muck.
Yeah, but there's plenty of small things on the reef, Nicole. It's
there are a lot of smaller. If poking around for nudie branches are your thing, you can do that. Sure, we've got lots of them up in Speyside.
Yeah. And another quick question for Pat. How many dive boats on a typical dive site? I mean, it's a very low key place, so compared to Red Sea or Maldives, very, very little. I would say. Is that correct, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get more than 2 boats on a site, and each of those boats are only going to have maybe 6 divers on board, maybe. And generally speaking, I mean, if we pull up onto our site, somebody else is there. We go, let's go nip around the corner, do something else.
Yeah, super. Andy asks, do you have a chamber on the island, a decompression chamber?
Yes, we are actually one of the first, if not the first, Caribbean island to put in a chamber. We did that back in the early days. So this would have been somewhere around 89 or 90, I think. We put a chamber on island. It is functional. It's fully staffed. They just recently relocated it. It's being it's being used on a daily basis. Oh, that's kind of two-edged, but it's not being used for diving, but for treatment of divers. It's being used primarily for treatment of gangrene, folks with diabetes, and so forth. So it is being used every day, so it is fully functional.
That's good. Excellent. Tams asked, do you need to have a PADI license to do this? So Tams, I can answer that one. In order to dive and do fun dives, then you need to have a license. But one of the things that you can do on Tobago, and it's a great place to do it, is to learn to dive as part of your holiday. At the very end of this, after these Q&As, I've got a slide with just a few sample trip ideas, one of which is to learn to dive. So it's a great place to do it, and I highly recommend Tobago for that. What else have we got? We've got Andy asking, do you do any night dives on the island, Derek?
Yes, all of the dive centers do night dives. As far as I'm aware, no one's got a scheduled night dive to say every Monday or whatever it may be that there is a night dive going on. But certainly, once there's enough participation, night dive will go out. Not an issue.
Yeah.
If we get 2-3 persons want to do a night dive, we're out there.
Super. Okay. And then we have lots on the chat as well. Thank you, everybody, so much for the engagement. I'm just going to have a little scan through. We've got some comments and some questions as well. That was one from Holly. Any photography dive courses offered on Tobago? I know you mentioned that there's some photography experts on the island. Do you offer photography courses there, or does any of the other dive centers that you know of?
I'm not 100% sure on that one. No. We don't do photography classes. If it's a novice diver who's just come down, just bought a camera, got the camera down here, I can certainly point you in the right direction. I'm not going to give you a specialty certificate with it, but if you want to know how to get the most out of your GoPro, your point and shoot, and how to get good images of marine life, I will certainly help you with that. No charge. I'm not sure about the other dive centers up at the northern end, whether they do have formal classes.
Yeah, sure. And Holly, I'm not quite sure either, but we're very happy to look into that for you if that's what you want to do. No problems at all. Noel asked, sort of, what's a typical diving day like? Sort of, what time do you tend to go out and come back? How many dives a day do you tend to offer?
Typically, what happens is that dive boat leaves in the morning, 9:30, depends on the dive center. Dive boat will run out in the morning. They'll do 2 dives with somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour surface interval. Then the boat will get back in 12:30, 1 o'clock, somewhere in that ballpark range, depending on distance to sites. Then the afternoon would usually be a single afternoon dive, typically for tuition. So we'll do things like Discover Scuba Diving, or if we've got open water students, or we've got open water refreshers, the PADI Reactivate program going on, or if it's just divers who want to get a 3rd dive in. So it'll be a 3rd one there, and then possibly have a night dive after that, given sufficient participation.
Yeah, super. Thank you very, very much. We've got lots and lots of love for you, Derek, on the chat as well.
Oh,
plenty of people that have dived with you and remembered you and had a fantastic time. So thank you very much for looking after all these people, as well as being with us today on this chat. We've got one more question just in from Nicole. Is there a maximum dive time?
Yes, there is. I would say that yes, there is. Certainly with our dive center, and I think it applies to the others as well. Bear in mind that the dives it's not anchored boat diving, and so it's live boat guided dive. And generally, the dive centers have a max bottom time of an hour on the water, which I think is enough.
Round about normal. Yeah, exactly. Super. Okay. And is it reasonable to hire kit? Yes, I would say so. You know, Tobago's, from my experience anyway, is a very good value island. Everything is very reasonable. So equipment hire is not too extortionate, I believe, wherever you go.
Yeah, and Bear's 15 TT. What's that work out to? £1.50 or something like that?
Yeah.
Price not bad.
Yeah, about a quarter of a pint these days since the pubs reopened here. Super. Okay, I hope we've done a reasonable job there of answering most of the questions. If we've missed any, then we're very, very happy to follow up afterwards. If I get it right, I'm just going to share my screen with you to wrap up, or I'm going to attempt to anyway. Who can share? Let's have a look. Let me try and share it. Bear with me. Okay.
While you're doing that, Phil, big shout out to Ali and John. I do expect that when borders open, that you are here at head of the line. And I saw Nick's online as well. Cheers, Nick. Talk to you later on.
Yeah, Nick was mentioning to me the other day that you knew each other well. Okay, we've done that bit. Super. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen now with a little bit of luck. So we've got 4 sort of suggested packages we've put together, if you like. These are trip ideas, so they can be tailored to your need. But just to give you a bit of an idea on prices. So if you went for 1 week to the north of Tobago, then you would be looking at a price from around 1,495 per person. That's for your flights, transfers, 7 nights accommodation with breakfast, and 10 dives. That's a lead-in price because that's based on, I guess, the lower time of year. So if you're looking to go into peak season, it will be a little bit more. If you chose to do it in the south, then it's from 1,295, so a little bit cheaper. It's worth giving a special mention to Cocoa Reef, which is where Derek is based out of, and you can see the background of where he is sitting right now. It's absolutely beautiful. Cocoa Reef is absolutely wonderful, beautiful spot, and I can highly recommend it. It's a more luxurious resort, so that's probably from about 1,650 per person if you wanted to go and stay at Cocoa Reef, maybe closer to 2,000 if it's a peak season. We've got somebody on the chat saying I highly recommend Cocoa Reef. It is a beautiful spot. Then what a lot of people do, and Derek mentioned in the presentation, is to do north and south discovery. The days there is wrong. Sorry about that. It's probably about a 15-day trip, I would say, sort of 7 nights in the south and 7 nights in the north. is from a little over 2,000. Or if you wanted to learn to dive, which I think Tams was asking about, so a 7 nights in resort there with all the flights and an open water course, you're looking from about 1,395, depending of course on where you do it in the island and the standard of accommodation you are staying at. Tobago is a great destination, so while we don't know exactly when the borders are going to open now, all the the local operations and resorts are fantastic, so everything can be done on a flexible basis there, so there's no need to worry from that point of view in terms of booking. From anybody that wants to get something in the diary now and is inspired from this call, we're offering £75 off per person, just to those that have joined this call. So that's exclusive for all of you people that have joined. There'll be a thank you going out after this by email, which will have a few more details on that. So I think that's everything. It's just for myself to say thank you very much to everybody from Regal Dive and Dive Worldwide. We've got lots of people, customers of both on the call, and maybe many other people as well that haven't booked with us before, but we would love you to, of course. If after this call any questions come up that you would like to ask or you'd like to inquire, then of course do get in touch with myself or anyone of the team, and they will be very happy to talk to you about Tobago. Finally, thank you very much from myself and everybody else. Stephen, thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank
Derek,
you.
thank you very much for your time and your contribution. It's been an absolute pleasure to share the time with you all. We've got one last sneaky question from John. Let's just squeeze that in. Is it good for solo travelers? I would say
Absolutely.
Yes, it is. Yes, because it's really quite a good value place. It's fun as well. You're going to meet people. You're going to be social. It's not like going to the Maldives on your own. So, yeah, a yes from me.
Even just as an additional point, even if you're staying in that northern Caribbean, which I pointed out was quite a lot quieter, there's still loads of opportunities to meet people. It's so inviting. There's loads of evening activities as well. Local village life activities. Absolutely beautiful. Perfect for solo travels.
Well, to reinforce that point, Stephen, to reinforce that point, Charlottesville, in my opinion, is the friendliest village on the island.
Wow.
And when I need a break from the hubbub of the southern end, I go to Charlottesville.
Oh dear, brilliant. Okay, on that note, it looks tough. Looks really tough. On that note, we'll say goodbye and thank you very, very much for everybody for joining. Derek, you take care. Stephen, you take care, and we look forward to getting many of you out to Tobago to experience it for yourself as soon as we possibly can. All right.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Have a nice evening.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.